Space Fame, and
Oh,
I'm doing it as like this hip hop
yeah.
like mashup. And I have ideas for the video. I have ideas for the singers and the rappers I want to use, and I'm doing it like producer style, which is something I've never done before.
Right.
And I'm really excited about it. And there was a part where the Irene Cara song ends and the David Bowie song starts. And I was like lining up the parts right. I had built both of them separately, and I'm lining up the parts. It's not right. It's not right. And then I click it. I click it in, and I hit the space bar, and it plays, and it's perfect. And I just that feeling that walked over
Yeah.
my like, oh,
Yeah.
just just wonder and joy, and just
Yeah.
like it clicked right into like. And I felt that a ton of times when I'm with a band and we're playing, and it's kind of sloppy and it's going okay. And then all of a sudden we just all click together and we all look at each other the same way. We all feel it. We all feel that thing, that intangible, wonderful thing that we just made out of nothing, like,
Yeah.
and yeah, I think religious people feel the same thing. And I think people on cocaine feel the same thing.
Well,
I think that's the part.
it's something that's undescribable. I mean, one of the bands I love is Morphine, right?
Uh-huh.
And there's a portion in one of their songs, and it's just a bass roll where he goes like da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. But the timing of it, it's like I need everybody in the car to shut up, and then it plays, and they have to because sometimes bass is hidden, and you
Yeah.
don't hear it because it's under everything else.
Right.
And it's like, shut up and listen to that. And the time and nobody gets it. But for me, it's like magic. When it
Yeah.
happens, it just makes me feel happy. And
Yeah.
and I can't describe that. I can't describe why is that. Where does that come from? And that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
There's something going on, and it's within the scope of creativity.
Uh-huh.
And you're a working creative, and I know we're done. I hit record again just in case. You never know. But I was speaking on creativity at Comic-Con. I got invited here in Las Vegas, and I was on a panel with a bunch of comic book writers and me. And I'm a creative director at a marketing firm. I've written a book on creativity, so I guess they invited me, and it was really interesting because these guys were kind of like just artists in general, and a lot of stuff they talked about when in terms of creativity was, well, you got to follow your heart, you got to follow your soul, and you have to be inspired, and you have to really chase that love of this thing that you've. And there was a lot of this stuff, and then it came to me, and I was like, I'm so not romantic about this thing, because you don't get to be inspired when you're on a deadline. It doesn't matter how your day was. You have to bring it at a certain time.
You have to hammer out the craft part of it.
Right. You just got to figure it out. And it has to be awesome every single time. So where does that come from? You have to actually figure out how to get yourself to that level on a deadline. That's more important than following your heart. That's all kind of bullshit, because everybody does that. But when you're trying to actively create something so good, it takes a lot of freaking work. Especially a lot of energy, a lot of wasted time doing things like research and building on things. And you know what I'm talking about.
Watching YouTube tutorials on how to work recording software.
Right. And if you want to do, and there's this thing, everybody thinks it's like, oh, I wish I was creative. And it's just so funny to me that people say, oh, I wish I was creative. You know that a chimp in the jungle has figured out that if you strip the leaves off the twig, you stick it in an ant hole, it comes up and ants, and it eats ants off the thing. So a monkey figured out how to use a twig to eat ants. You don't think you can figure out the simplest
garage band?
That's pretty damn creative. It's a monkey. It's not a monkey, it's a chimp. I guess like people get mad if I said monkeys and chimps, the difference. But
I find that when I'm talking to people like who are real dreamy about creativity, they're usually the ones who don't create anything.
Right. Yeah. No, that's yeah. They're the ones that think
people who I'm a recording artist. I'm a writer. Like, what have you written? I'm working on another thing.
Right. It's when I look at a portfolio and I see somebody's sketch, usually it's of a portrait. They love doing portraits. You could tell by the density of the line and the pencil that they use where their confidence lies. A lot of times the eyes are nice and dark and heavy, and the rest of it's a little bit pale and light because they're totally confident about eyes. but they're not so confident about everything else. There's like no balance, and then no understanding of the use of black in your ink work or your drawings, and the use of colors and balance and framing and pieces. And it's funny because I start bringing that up. I'm 100% right most of the time on these things, on where their confidence. I could look at a portfolio and say, this sucks, but you put it in front because you thought that I wouldn't notice. You thought that I would think it's good, and it's not. And so what are you doing? And a lot of students do this because the teachers, a lot of times also teachers aren't giving them really good advice, I think, sometimes, on which is, I hate to say it, but it is true. I think our teachers sometimes focus too much on the craft sometimes, or on the actual work,
Yeah.
That's
it's hard because what sells you on creativity is that dreamy aspect,
right.
like when I was little, not little, but when I was in high school, I'd listen to the Beatles and I'd listen to all this stuff, and I'm like, this is so cool. And I in my head, I was imagining how it would go, then you pick up a guitar and it hurts your fingers. And like, it's, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And they're like, how are these guys doing it?
Cramp.
Like,
I get this cramp right here in my hand. I remember.
That's why I think Guitar Hero was like the worst thing ever. Because
I agree 1,000%.
Guitar Hero made you be the rock. You could be the rock star, but you didn't need to learn any of this shit.
Oh,
except for the drummer. Like in Rock Band, the drum part, you were playing drums. Like you were learning. All the rest of them were bullshit. They were button mashing, but the drums were like pads and sticks and stuff. And I'm like, well, if you learn that, I think you've got it.
Yeah, Henry Rollins did a spoken word, or even I think it was a book called "Get in the Van." Have you heard that one? I think it was called "Get in the Van."
That sounds familiar.
When he was in Black Flag, he told the story of when he was in Black Flag, and the life of a punk band was horrible.
Oh yeah,
miserable.
I was in punk bands in high school and it was miserable just staying here.
Yeah, just what you had to do to get a gig, and when you got there, and the way you were treated, and the way you didn't get paid and got screwed, and all the ins and outs of the misery that you had to go through, and the fact that people still do it because there's something that keeps them there is really kind of great.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but, and I think it's not so much punk anymore. I think now it's kind of hip hop. I think hip hop is like modern punk.
Right.
In a way, or was. I don't really know what's modern punk now. I think
my daughter would agree with you about that.
Yeah.
I think she's turning me on to stuff that I kind of don't want to be turned on to, but then I listen to it and I'm like, oh, you know what? That is actually pretty good.
There's a lot of really bad hip hop out there now, though. Like all the mainstream stuff, that mumble shit.
Yeah.
Oh, terrible.
We do this thing where she'll play me a song, and inevitably the song she plays me will remind me of something that I like, and so and I will play that song, and then she will then be influenced, and we do this back and forth sharing of
That's cool.
And it actually turns into me really understanding what she's moved by in music, and then it makes me understand a little more of ways I can introduce her to stuff that because I was in 80s. I mean, I'm an 80s guy. I'm 51. I was influenced by some pretty bad music early on, mixed with some underground stuff that was really good. And this mashup of the two. Like I'm nostalgic for really crappy stuff. You hear some really crappy music, but you're nostalgic because it reminds you of being a kid and having a girl. But I loved it. I loved it. It was great. And music was so important. I mean, there's really nothing more important when you're a kid. At least when I was a kid.
Yeah.
A song. It was just everything. It meant everything.
Yeah. Well, it was your identity. Like, like the T-shirts you wore, the cassette tapes you owned. Like that was part of your identity.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So this is the first time I'm going to do a regular show, and I'm going to have the second one. Because I think
I've always just cut it all together into one thing.
I don't like all the. No, I don't like editing. I like the in there. So I keep all the, and then I'll do a little little mini. So this is the mini interview. Here,
okay.
I'm doing because I think it's some good stuff. Is worth sharing here. But all right, man, you're great. I'll talk to you again soon.
All right, Alex.
All right, my friend.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you.